staff at IT, in terms of being able to, we do an awful lot at the police department. There's an awful lot of activity that goes on, but extracting that data from our system and be able to report it to you in a meaningful manner, in a readable format, sometimes isn't the easiest thing for us to do. So, and that's all part of it in terms of our crime numbers. So we pull out raw numbers for you, very basic, but that's what we have right now.
Thank you all for coming. We'll start the meeting. If we could, would the secretary read the minutes from the last meeting?
Well, I'll read the roll first.
Thank you.
He's been absent for a week. Robert King.
Here.
Mary Cronin. Diane Cervello.
Here.
Carl Morano.
Here.
Mary Comstock.
Here.
Edward Torian.
Here.
Paul Swenson. Here. Joan Mead.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, I will now read the minutes from our last meeting, which was Monday, August the 11th. At that meeting, we accepted the minutes from the July 28th meeting, and we heard input from the public. We heard from Lynn Waller, who asked that the commission listen to both sides of the aisle on various issues. Mr. Al Robinson addressed us. He asked for the exact dates and times. The city clerk was invited to speak and stated that only the Common Council has authority to hire an assistant clerk under the present charter. The commission then had an extended discussion with Joseph Cabo, the current council president, regarding the office of the city clerk. Mr. Cabo stated that office functions effectively and efficiently under the current city clerk, who provides, with the support of a part-time person, all the support he thinks the council requires. He believes that the position should be retained as an elective office, perhaps with a different name. Mr. Cabo also supports lengthening the terms of office of all city elected officials to 4 years. He discussed the wisdom of reducing the number of positions on the council to a much smaller number and threw out the number 7 to make it a more effective body. He stated to us that he believes the council functions well, with the mayor as its presiding officer. The commission then voted unanimously to add a discussion with Alan Baker, the chief of police, to the agenda. In that discussion with Chief Baker, he made several suggestions to change the language of the charter to eliminate the need for newly hired officers to be approved by the council, as they'd already met all the requirements of civil services state law regarding eligibility and training to be police officers. He discussed eliminating a charter provision requiring special police officers, as state law requires police officers, including special police officers, to have at least 800 hours of training. He explained that the elimination of the charter provision requiring special police officers would not prevent the police department from using special police officers, and that the current special police officers, of which there are 13, would not lose their positions if the change to the charter were made. He also proposed incorporating specific educational and experience requirements in the position of chief of police. The commission agreed to discuss changes regarding special police at its next meeting, that's today, August the 25th. And the commission unanimously voted to add to the agenda and discuss changes to section H8-10 to the charter, requiring a periodic review of the charter at least every 10 years. And the commission unanimously voted to adopt that change.
Thank you. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Then the minutes stand as read. We will now hear from the public. Is there anyone in the room that would like to address us? Lynn? You may do it from there.
Thank you. What is pink? Something is pink.
Right.
My pacemaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
They may be picking it up on the sound as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for doing what you're doing. I know it takes a long time to do this and read all of it, and we, the public, at least I am very appreciative of all your efforts, and especially for listening to us. Whether you act on it or not, at least you hear us. I wanted to talk a little bit about the size of the council. I hope you realize that Mr. Cavo's suggestion, as he said, was his alone, but when he suggested going down to 7 members, I almost hopped off my seat, and I don't hop well. I'm very concerned about that. It doesn't matter which is the administration. I've had the problem under Democrats as well as Republicans, trying to put information in or get it in on the agenda or whatever. If you have a council with only 7 members, it's going to be absolutely impossible for the public to get any information in. I also want to encourage you to keep the at-large members, because when you are not necessarily a member of one party or the other, you tend to be disregarded. I know when there were 18 Democrats, I had a terrible time talking to anybody. They just didn't want to talk to you. And now that the Republicans are in charge, it's almost the same, vice versa. So it's not really that, but the at-large members represent everyone in the city, and usually one of them is willing to listen. So I truly hope you don't go down to 7 members, and if you do shrink it, I hope you don't shrink it to the point of getting rid of the at-large members. I think it's important that some people represent the entire city. I don't remember that was all. The length of term of 4 years, I don't know whether I approve or disapprove of that. I thought it was a good idea for a long time. But if you're going to give any mayor the access to borrow as much money as I keep hearing thrown around here, I'm really concerned about giving a mayor 4 years in office before he has to face the public with what he's been doing. So I'm content with the 2 years, unless you decide to cap or do something to stop the tremendous amount of borrowing that can go on under the way you all have chosen to leave it. I was tickled pink. I'm concerned when you mentioned should the council be compensated. I wanted to scream no. If you compensate the council, you're going to have to do the same for the Planning Commission, the Zoning Commission, EIC, all the boards, and all the people that volunteer their time. I just don't think the council should be singled out for compensation. They are here a lot, but so are all the other members, and I'm not sure that they should be paid for that. They realized what they volunteered for, and I think that's a good idea. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address us?
Al Robinson, 182 Osborne Street. I want to read section 3, a portion of section 3.3 of the charter pertaining to the city clerk. And it states here, the council may at any time appoint an assistant clerk or clerks who shall, in the absence or disability of the clerk, perform all the duties of the clerk in all records and acts of said assistant. My understanding of this here states that the common council appoints assistants for the city clerk, not the common council president, not the city clerk, but the Common Council itself. And hearing the remarks from the Common Council President last week, at the last meeting, it seems to indicate that he and the city clerk got together and appointed the assistants. That seems to me, in my opinion, to be a violation of the charter. He did say he taught the Corporation Council and the Director of Personnel. I would hope that the members of this commission here would ask Corporation Council and the Director of Personnel, how did they come to that conclusion? Because according to what this says here, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, it does say the Common Council appoints assistants, not the city clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. Warren?
Good evening. Warren Levy, 5 Pilgrim Drive. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the commission for doing what they've done so far. Pretty much all of it sounds pretty good as far as any modifications. I do have a comment, and it parallels pretty much what the previous speaker spoke to, and that is about compliance with the existing charter and how we could perhaps strengthen or have some kind of I say counterbalance or some kind of weighted balance as far as other council members. I know in the charter it refers to if the mayor becomes incapacitated, the president of the council would take that position over. And I think that language carries over into the city clerk's position as well. And that is when it makes reference to the assistant city clerk, the hiring of assistant city clerks, it gives that power to the Common Council, not to any one member of the Common Council. That same kind of language could be specific. It could say the president of the Common Council can hire assistant city clerks, but the language is quite clear. It says the Common Council, and past precedent holds that true. But that's not, we're not here that you're reviewing the charter. And what I'm saying, that's an example of where does the Common Council member go, or where does a resident go for compliance to the charter? How do you get a fair hearing? And we talked about this before as far as having the Common Council have an attorney hired by the Common Council, working in the Corporation Counsel's office, but representing the council, rather than having only the Corporation Council representing the entire executive branch as well as the legislative body. This would give a little more equality to interpretations. I know that the president made reference to the fact that he did go to the Corporation Council for an opinion before he hired what he referred to as an assistant, okay, assistant city clerk, which I agree with the interpretation. The interpretation is clear, that only the Common Council can hire assistants. So I would like to see more strengthening as far as arbitration when it comes to interpretations of what the responsibilities of the various branches of government, in some way to counterbalance that. And that may be through an attorney representing, working solely for the Common Council. Maybe. I don't know. I count on your wisdom. I'm sure you've recognized the testimony that's come before you. Some of it is a little loose. Some of it doesn't make sense, but I leave it to your good judgment. Originally, I agreed with the 4-year term. I thought that was a good idea until I heard your commission members speak about there is no recall and how we would be left with, God forbid, a mayor that was created certain improprieties. We wouldn't be able to remove him from office. So I too now do not support increasing the length of term. I think 2 years is fine, and I would continue along with that 2-year term. As far as the size of the council, I know the newspaper many times over the years has made reference to this is an unwieldy size of common council, 21 members, but we've never had a problem. So what are we trying to fix? If it isn't broken, don't fix it. Seems to be fine, and I would continue along. I think we have minority representation. I support that. That's a good idea. I've been on both sides of the fence, in the minority and the majority. And even when I was in the majority, I appreciated that minority. So I go along with that. Other than that, I think that the commission is doing a good job. I think that the capital budget portion of it, you're adopting the setback as far as the date, will remedy a lot of other problems. And I think that the mayor does need more money. I don't think it should be totally out of control. I believe it should be capped to some extent, but I think by moving the capital budget date back to the February 15th, you've basically achieved that. It will not be used to supplement an operating budget. Thank you very much for listening. Any
Thank you.
questions?
Questions, comments? Thank you, Ward. Anybody else from the public? Yes.
Good evening, Paul Rotello, 13 Linden Place, Danbury. Just a couple of comments briefly. Size of the council, I prefer it the way it is for a couple of reasons. The first, as Warren alluded to, it's not unwieldy. If you've ever seen us up there, we're not engaging in food fights on a monthly basis. It's a fairly relaxed, uncontentious atmosphere. We get along with each other fairly well. I've been on several councils over the last 10 years, and I've never been in a situation where I've said to myself, this is not working, it's too big. One of the issues with reducing the size of the council, or any deliberative body, is the issue of a quorum. There are oftentimes, you'll see us on the council, we're down a couple of people, 2 or 3 people. We need a certain amount for a quorum. If you reduce that to, say, 14, if you were to eliminate the at-large people, we would need, I believe, 8 for a quorum at that point. So if we were down a few guys during the summertime, we'd actually be in a position where we couldn't have a meeting. The zoning commission gets around that by having a couple of people who aren't really on the zoning commission. They're sort of like, on deck. And if the regular guys can't make it, they bring up the bench, and they can, sit in. You don't need to do that with the council. These are non-voting under most circumstances positions, and if they have to vote, they have to listen to tapes. They have to certify they've listened to the tapes of the previous meetings. This is all avoided with the council. If we had 7 members, like President Cabo suggested, if we were down just a couple, we wouldn't be able to have a quorum. Oftentimes, we need a 2/3 majority, and that's not a 2/3 majority of members present. That's with the full body. The way it is now, that means it's 14. I've been on the council a couple of times, we've been down 5 people. That brings us to 16. We still have that 2/3 majority. So in everything but an extraordinary circumstance, the body will be able to meet on a monthly basis and function because we've got 21 people, even if we're down, as I've mentioned, a few people. Speaking of 2/3, there is one thing, and maybe Rick can speak to this. When we first met to deliberate whether we should engage a charter commission, we needed at that point, the council needed, a 2/3 majority to vote in this body. Once you have produced your revisions and given it to the council, we only need 11 votes to pass that, a simple majority. I'm not sure, and this would be the question to Rick, what will happen if the body decides to add amendments? Let's say that you voted down some particular things that people really want, they want to bring them back in as amendments, or you voted them up and people want to vote them down, so the amendments are made. After what you've gone through to do this, I would like the council to have to either vote up or vote down amendments using a 2/3 majority. Preferably, I would like to see the revisions made with a 2/3 majority also, the regular council. The charter already speaks to that. I don't know what's going to happen if, whenever this comes before us on the council, we decide to make some changes on top of the changes you've already made. That's done by amendment. I'm not sure if we need to have a simple majority at that point or not. What I would prefer, it wouldn't work for this one, it would obviously work for the next one once we've voted it in. I would like to see any changes made by the full body after you guys have made your changes to be done with a 2/3 majority. Payment, unnecessary. It's not, it complicates things. We'd all love to make a few dollars doing this. We'd all love to have health benefits and all that kind of stuff. But we are a volunteer body for the city. And one thing about not getting paid, it has a tendency to reduce people's length of terms. You just can't do this forever if you're not getting paid. And you probably shouldn't do this forever. You probably should just do a couple of terms, let somebody else come in and take a shot at it. Term limits. Against them. Some community wants to keep voting for somebody, let them. A term length, keep it at 2 years. A couple of good reasons for that. They've been spoken to already. For my money, keeping it at 2 years simply means that a member of the council has to be that much closer to the constituents than they would if they were on 4 years. Look, we would all love to be 6-year guys like senators. I can't even imagine what that must be like. You campaign and you win an election. You don't do anything for 5 years. I mean, that's wonderful. Plus you get paid. It's beautiful. Live at the Watergate Hotel. I think in a city like Danbury, or really any community in Connecticut, a 2-year term, it's working. We don't have to change it. The mayor's doing it. Mayors in Danbury, we have been extraordinarily lucky with mayors. As you realize, the mayor has 2 jobs. He's the political head of the city. He's also the city manager. The city is not split up like a lot of communities with its own city manager, with its own special skills. We've been extraordinarily lucky that the mayors that we have elected have shown amazingly good city manager skills. I mean, that's a job that people go to school for. It's like a school superintendent. Some of these guys have PhDs. It would be as extraordinary to hire, to elect a school superintendent who was previously in another occupation, like in a water department or a school teacher or a mechanic, and have him turn out to be as good a school superintendent as our mayors are at city managing, and it would be just that unusual. We've been lucky. But keep it at 2 years, because every once in a while we could get somebody who's not so good, and believe me, the public picks up on these kinds of things rather quickly. That's about all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be here for a little while. If you want to ask me now, that's fine. If I, through the chair, Rick, do you know if we add amendments to the revisions, will we need a simple majority, or do you think we'll need 2/3?
State law.
Oh, state, okay.
State law governs, and it says majority vote to approve the final report or make amendments to
Okay,
it.
so the charter revision would not be able to do anything, that's all by state statute. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address us? Yes. Mr. Cheney?
Thank you. I'm Ben Chenese, 5 Briar Ridge Road. I just want to again discuss the council itself as a member. I think when you talk about the council, you have to understand that we as a council don't act as an individual. We act as a body. So how we vote is we vote as a body. So no matter if the council is 3 people, 4 people, 7 people, it's still the body that votes. And I'm a belief that the more within the body, the more debate you have, the stronger the council. So as our city grows in population, as we have been doing over a number of years, the size of the council will start to matter. Currently at 21 people, it represents the city, because we have 21 members throughout the city. If you start reducing that number, you can, if it's 1 per ward, these wards are starting to get pretty large, because the population is in such a way that Ward 7 or Ward 6 or Ward 5 has a lot of people in it, and one person may not represent them individually. So by keeping the number, a larger number, I think we would better represent the city. So it doesn't matter what people say, how much, that nothing gets done on the council. Well, we do have caucuses and we do a lot of debating, which is very good. The more debate you have, the more things get on the floor, and then more things can get discussed. As a member of the EIC, we had 9 people, and on most time, 4 people show up. But the quality of that commission is a lot of questions don't get asked because people feed on each other. Well, one person may ask a question and say, well, wow, and that will lead to a lot of debate. So that's why I feel that the size of a council or of a body does matter. And it should represent the population. So if you wanted to limit the number, then you should base it on the population size. Currently, we have 80,000 people in the city by the census. I know we have a lot more than that probably, but if it's 100,000, that should dictate the size of the commission. So if you are going to deliberate on any of the size, you have to take into consideration the population of our city. Because if you reduce the number, then you've got to reduce the referendum requirement, which is 15% now. Because if you have a body of, for example, 4 people, and they come up with an ordinance that the majority of the city just does not like, well, what's the alternative? It's a referendum. But at 15%, very rarely in the city history have we ever had a referendum by the public itself. It just doesn't happen. So that's why I think you will need to have the, again, I'm repeating myself, the size of the council should represent the population that it serves. So and I'm a big believer in that. And I'm also a believer of separation of powers as well. As you know, the council is a legislative branch, and we have an executive branch. And the two should really be separate. Currently, we have the mayor presiding at our council meetings. He assigns the committee members. So people think, well, why is it an executive branch telling the legislative branch what to do? It's almost like the President of the United States residing at the Senate and giving out the Senate committees. It doesn't happen. So why should we here on a local setting be any different? I think the council should be an independent branch. We should act independently. We should have our independent council. So that way we can come out with legislative laws that, you know, if the mayor comes up with the idea, we should act independently of those laws. So that way we can deliberate correctly. So that's what I have to say about the council size.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Thank you, Ben. Margaret?
Margaret Mitchell. I'm a taxpayer. I am not a resident. I own property at Park Place and Main Street with my family. It says here that you're going to review items previously approved by the commission. Well, I was going to be out of town by this time, so I've already said thank you to many of you, but I want to thank you all for serving. You've really represented various and sundry opinions of the city, and I think the city's been very well represented. I'd also like to thank you for, in the capital plan, sending that early to the Common Council. There was no real procedure in the past. The Planning Commission only looked to see if the items in the capital plan would be conflicting with the goals of the plan of conservation and development. And that simply wasn't any financial management. So I think that's a wonderful step that you've taken there. And it does sort of help me with my concerns about the bonding. I grew up in town meetings down in Easton, so I sort of like to have a town meeting kind of government instead of a legislative government, because that was the democracy I grew up in. But I'd really like to encourage you to put in some kind of a trigger point where you send the bonding back to the people for a vote up or down automatically, so they don't have to come in and petition the council. I don't have a good plan for that, but maybe someone here now, or maybe someone in the public hearings that you have after I leave town will have something to say that will be very helpful. I've wanted 4-year terms for elected officials. I have been talked out of it. I now feel that's a very bad idea. I talked to you when I first came in about 2 issues. One was the fact that there is no way to have the charter enforced. I complained to you quite bitterly about the fact that the budget books are not available to the public. The Common Council is supposed to tell the city clerk to distribute those, and that one little step never happened, so there are no budget books for the public. And you can FOI it, or you can, and I don't think any of that's necessary. It's a right in our charter. I think it should happen. But we have no enforcement component for people to see that they're getting what the charter says they're entitled to. And I think the charter is sort of the bottom line of what you're entitled to out of your government. And I would like to see some easy way that you can access something so that you get this bottom line situation where this is the minimum you get out of your government. I was never in favor of planning and zoning being consolidated. I went to the meetings when they did the comprehensive plan and said so. My reason is very simplistic, that the kind of people that are willing to run and the kind of people that are willing to serve without running and be appointed have different personalities, and that by having those two things separate, you get a little bit of benefit from both of those things. And you also spread the caseload over more people. And therefore, I like the bigger council, and I like the minority representation. I've noticed I'm probably in the minority no matter who's in office in Danbury. And so I like this whole idea of minority representation. And the size of the council probably wouldn't work at all if everything wasn't done in ad hoc committees. But by doing it in ad hoc committees with very responsible people, and we've been blessed with the people that have showed up to be on council and mayors and so on. I think that the number works because we have this well-developed ad hoc committee system. And so I was trying to quickly give you the ups and downs, because this last time should have been my last night, but now this time should be my last time. And again, thank you all for a very nice job.
Thank you. Just a question, Rick, to the council, Mr. Chairman, through you.
Yep.
Enforcement of the charter, this has been brought up a couple of different ways. Provisions that are contained in the charter, is there an enforcement mechanism for that?
Kind of depends on what the subject is. Mrs. Mitchell has complained to you about an inability to obtain public records. There is an enforcement mechanism in state law through the Freedom of Information Commission. But there is no enforcement mechanism with respect to the charter, as there is no enforcement mechanism specifically written into the United States Constitution or the Connecticut Constitution.
The other examples I believe I heard was that vacancies hadn't been filled in a timely manner, and that may be for a variety of factors. It doesn't seem practical to have an enforcement that you must fill something if an administration is operating efficiently without it or can't find a qualified person. So sometimes it does, doesn't make sense to have it in there.
Well, the law allows for, occasionally, for some flexibility, even when language appears mandatory. The traditional dichotomy is between use of the word may, which is permissive, and the use of the word shall, which appears to be mandatory. And with respect to the filling of vacancies, the word shall is used.
Could you hold on?
With respect to the filling of vacancies, the word shall is used, which appears to make it mandatory. But in similar settings, not necessarily with respect to vacancies, judges in case law have said that there are circumstances when the use of the word shall is not mandatory, but is directory. The use of the word, and there are tests for this, one of which I remember, is that there's no penalty involved. No downside is given in the document to indicate what happens if you fail to follow this apparently mandatory language. And what the courts have said is that in a circumstance where the language is deemed to be directory, what it is an encouragement. It's a direction that's given, for example, to fill a vacancy within 40 days. You do the best you can to fill it within 40 days. That's the rule.
Thank you. No other question.
Any other questions or comments? Then if we could, we will go to our agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we, just as a technical point, I think that we were, did not have the benefit of our capable secretary this week as he was on a mission of mercy taking his daughter back to college. And as a result, the agenda was not posted until later. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the agenda that we all have in front of us, and that we also add to that a subject of city clerk and a briefing of a meeting that we've had for clarification of outstanding issues with the mayor that I believe the chair is going to discuss with the commissioners. So I make a motion that we accept those items.
Okay, a motion has been made. Second, that we accept the 4 items on the agenda, add the item of city clerk discussion, and a discussion about a conversation that we had with the mayor. Any discussion on that motion? And again, this is just technical because we didn't get posted in time, which was, too many of us were traveling this past week, I'm afraid. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, first item on the agenda, we've already taken care of. Second item will be commission discussion of the size of the council. You've heard some things about it tonight. Any other questions or points of discussion from the commissioners? Peter?
Well, this, whatever we pass, whatever we end up in our final report, is gonna go to the council. And it just begs the question is, will the council vote to cut its own membership? I mean, if we were 21 guys voted to put some of them out of a job, and I just don't see that happening. I don't think that's a practical way of looking at it.
Right.
And, you know, I just think that's something that we should consider as to our work and what our final report's gonna be. It's an interesting concept, and I've heard it, and being a lifelong resident of Danbury, I've heard it discussed, I've read about it being discussed, you know, changing the number of council people, and perhaps it might be more efficient. But government isn't necessarily always meant to be efficient, it's meant to be representative. And I kind of think I like the 21 members, at least as it is right now, until it's broken.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I would concur with that, and my experience on the council, that it never was an unwielding body to work with. We worked smoothly, and the mention about ad hoc committees, that was just perfect. We were able to meet, bring the issues in and back in a report and have it passed summarily at the next council meeting. So I support the 21 councilors.
Any other questions or comments? Diane?
Well, with all the committees that do have to meet, would 7 members really be enough? You know, would that be too much work for that size of a body to do? And I think that's another reason why the 21 seems appropriate.
Yeah, I think that number caught people by surprise.
And then we'd have to pay those 7 people because they would be inundated with work.
Yes.
I'm getting a sense of the commission that this isn't going anywhere.
Right.
Shall we just drop it? Is there anyone that is going to make a motion that we reduce the size of the council?
No?
Seeing none, we'll just, we don't need to pass that, we can simply move on.
Right.
Okay, third item on the agenda, and thank you for your comments, everybody.
Very helpful.
Discussion of charter changes is proposed by Chief of Police Baker. If you were here last week, you remember, at the last meeting, you remembered that we had a memo from the Chief of Police regarding some issues. In a conversation with the mayor, he kind of clarified the difference between his proposal in his letter, which was basically bringing the language up to state law. That's really what the mayor's proposal was. Rick, I believe you have language?
I have a handout.
Thank you.
This language really addresses just the point that the mayor made in his correspondence, I believe, to you, early in the process. And he may have even mentioned it in his meeting here, that he would be in favor of adding some language that makes reference to the screening process that is required by state law. So here it is. It's an amendment to 6-9, adding new language to the end of the first paragraph.
Thank you. Now, what this section does is it takes some of what the chief of police had requested. This does not address the elimination of the special police officers, nor does it address the language regarding the job qualifications of the chief of police. Nor does it address the chief's request that appointees go before not go before the council for approval.
That's not what we're doing.
We're not doing that here. So it's this language only. So I'll give you a second to read that, and then I'll explain why we're not, at this time at least, doing the other sections. Any questions?
I have a question,
Yes.
and maybe it's to all successful entry-level candidates. What does that mean?
You mean, what's an entry level?
What's a successful entry level?
Means they've gone through the merit system. The merit system involves, as the chief of police indicated to you last time, involves a series of steps, including a written test, an oral test, agility tests, I believe, what are the machines? Lie detector test, polygraph test. And so once that process is done, the Civil Service Commission creates an eligibility list, and from that list, the mayor chooses successful candidates.
And then in order to become a police officer, they've got to go to the police academy and pass that course.
And to be appointed, they require the approval of common council, correct?
Under current charter.
Right.
And in a conversation,
And that will remain the same.
in a conversation with the mayor, he felt that we should keep the council as part of that process, that the council should approve the mayor's selection. He didn't think that was a good idea, taking it away from the council. And we asked him about the special police, because remember when the chief was here, he talked about eliminating that. And the mayor said, no, we need that, because if we can't get someone approved by council in time, and there's a set timeline for all these things, they can appoint them as specials, and then that'll give us the time for the council to then approve those people. He said that's pretty standard in the process. So he felt the less we do, the better, and that's why we're doing just one section, section 6-9, as it relates to the police department.
And so basically, all we're doing is just adding the qualifications for an entry-level police officer. And changing
We're
up-
bringing it up to state requirements.
Which is also required currently by state statute, am I correct?
Yes, correct.
So it's really bringing state statute language into the charter is what we're doing.
And all of the current specials already meet these qualifications.
It's my understanding that they would not be able to serve unless they had gone through the state,
All of
what's it
them
called, the
currently
state council.
already have these qualifications.
My
We're not.
understanding, yes.
Now, he talked about there being a difference in the requirements now, but which would not affect the current special police officers and the number of hours of training. So the state's now requiring 800 hours of training.
880 hours.
that is one of the reasons why he wanted to do away with it, because
I believe what he was indicating to you is it's rather difficult to get someone to go through 800 hours of training
right.
for a position that you may or may not derive an income from. If
Mhm.
you're not selected for a job this week, you don't get paid.
Mhm.
That was the sense I got from what he was.
But the mayor did say that we do use our specials, that he didn't. I don't think he felt that it was a good idea to get rid of them. And that's why his recommendation was that we upgrade this language and nothing more. Any other questions? Do we need more information to move ahead, or is everybody happy with this? Could I entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the wording as amended in section 6-9, and as submitted to us by council.
Motion's been made. Second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any other discussion? I'll try your minds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the motion passes. We've now amended section 6-9. Moving on to our next agenda item. Review, or do we want to talk about city?
No, we can do this review thing, I think.
Let's do the review then of items.
And what I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, as you asked, that we prepare those documents for handing out. These are all of the items that have been passed by the commission to date, that council has forwarded to us. I would suggest that rather than going into a long discussion about these, that we give each commissioner a chance to read them, and then perhaps at the next meeting, if there's any discussion, we can conduct it at that time.
Two things about this. Number one, Mr. King put this together, which saved us all a great deal of work, so I appreciate that. This is all the language that we've passed so far. And I think what we want to do is, as we finish this process, which we think we're going to finish in September, this process of passing what changes we're going to do, I think what we'd like to do is go back through each item and make sure we're still on board with that item. Because if you're like me, as we've moved through this process, we've picked up more information and we may have a slightly different perspective. So these are the things that we've decided to date that we wanted to change. And what I would like to do is be sure that we can get all commissioners here for our final meeting in September, which is September 25th. If you could mark that in your calendars. We'll be doing work between now and then, but that will be the target date, to have all commissioners here so that we can go through each and every item that we've passed to make sure that we're happy with it.
22nd.
I'm sorry, the 22nd. We didn't make that as a motion. So that we can go back through and be sure that we're happy with what we've done, and if there's any items that we haven't, that weren't passed, that you want to bring back up, we will try to do it at that point and have a full commission at that point in time. So I thought this was a great shorthand way of doing that. And you all did have that, I think, in an email. So if we're missing something, let us know about that. Okay, next, any questions or discussion, concerns about that? Then moving on. We added to the agenda item that we would discuss the position of city clerk. Mr. Gottschalk.
I have a handout.
That's the spirit.
Any change with respect to city clerk, and including this one, which concerns not just the title, but the means of filling this position, is going to impact more than one section. So what I've done is to try and highlight for you the two sections that seem to be impacted most dramatically, and then in addition to add a reference to all of the sections that I was able manually to pick up where there's a reference to the phrase city clerk. ordinarily, I would do that kind of checking with the assistance of a computer, because I have no confidence that I've got them all. But the computer was very uncooperative, and so I'm hoping that tomorrow or the next day, it will be more docile and would allow me to just check my work. But in the meantime, this is what you get, and I hope it's okay. I will tell you that this proposal, in particular 2-2A sub D, is the product of a conversation that the chairman and the vice chairman had with the mayor in my presence, and it concerned whether or not the clerk should be an appointed position or an elected position. And it was my sense, and I think I got it right, that the mayor was not opposed to making this position an appointed position, so long as there was some lead time given. And so what you'll see here is, first of all, a change in the title to reduce some of the confusion. And second of all, some language saying that it kicks in after the 2009 term. So in the election of 2011, there would be no city clerk or legislative clerk or whatever other title you choose for this position. And that at that point, the position would be appointed by the mayor with an opportunity by the common council to reject the appointment if they really didn't like the thing.
I will give you 10 minutes to read this because it's lengthy and important. I feel like a teacher. I'm waiting for eye contact to figure out if everyone's finished reading. Okay, assuming that you're close. A couple of things. to point out, number one, we've had this discussion before, this has nothing to do with the people involved in the position. This is, should this position be in this charter? Number two, no change would be made until 2011, assuming that this was approved as is. And at that point in time, it would then be up to the mayor to make the appointment if this language is correct. One other thing that sticks out is, it says, the council may at any time appoint an assistant clerk or clerks who shall, in the absence of the disability of the clerk, perform all the duties. That language wasn't changed. So if there's changes, let's go through where you think you might want to make some changes to this. I'll entertain any questions. This is our first go-through. Yes, Diane?
I have a question about the legislative clerk shall not be subject to the merit system. The merit system is sort of like the civil service, is that? Okay?
That's what it is, yes. I will tell you that I drew, for this language, I drew upon other sections of the charter dealing, for example, with the administrative assistant to the mayor and the corporation counsel, for example, and you find that language in there.
If you remember, we were warned against making it elective. We were warned against making it civil service because that person might be more difficult if politics crept in, which I guess it has in the past. So this looked like a way where we've got someone who this person is definitely accountable to, and try as best we can to get the politics out of that position, because it should be a service position. You'll notice that we got rid of the term city clerk. We still have the term clerk in there, so if anyone is a wordsmith and come up with something better, legislative assistant, we're not married to the term legislative clerk, but we think that'll get rid of some of the confusion perhaps that position entails. Any other questions or comments about that? Any reactions to it?
Yeah.
Peter?
The concept of the clerk not being the former city clerk, but the city clerk's position not being elected is very appealing to me. I just don't think it's a necessarily elected position. So this accomplishes that. It's a change of name. I'd like to put my head on and think about it, and maybe ask other people thinking, just to get the word or term clerk out of there completely, maybe legislative reporter or council reporter, something, some other language. What it does is it might change further the balance of power a little bit in terms of the mayor. He's the presiding officer, and yet he's also going to be the person who's going to appoint the person who's going to hold and disseminate the records. And okay, I mean, maybe that's okay, but if you're going to do that and go with this wording, instead of the appointment may be disapproved by a vote of 2/3, perhaps we should change that to be shall be approved by a vote of 2/3, or just switch the balance back a little bit to the council. I don't have a problem with the mayor putting the name into play, but it should be something that this is the council's person, this is the council's point person for disseminating information to the public, the point person for getting information to the council. So I just sort of have a feel that the council should be a little bit more involved affirmatively in the process of this particular person.
Good
But
point.
I like the solution. I mean, we're going the right way for me.
Do we know why the word disapproved was used instead of approved?
It's
This was language or concept. The language is drawn from other sections of the charter, so that was a no-brainer for me, once the concept was identified. And the concept was identified over the course of a 15 or 20-minute conversation with the mayor. This was his thinking. I think that he would be receptive to whatever the will of this commission is. I don't think he's adamant that a disapproval by the county council is the only thing that would be acceptable to him. I think far from it. But this was his proposal, so it starts the conversation.
And what it does is it makes this person's accountable to the mayor, because one of the questions was, who on the council would they be accountable to? There's nobody who's really got a full-time position. This now brings human resources into the equation and things, so it's a start. Questions, comments? We'll think about this before we decide what to do about it, I'm assuming. And this will be something that'll probably come up at the next meeting, and like I said, hopefully we'll finish all these things. This will also give our friends on the Common Council time to take a look at this and give us your input in the future. Paul?
Can I ask the commissioner to think of one, the last sentence, the council may at any time appoint an assistant clerk or clerks. Do we want to say, do we want to think about the council may at any time by this action through the president, through, I'm thinking of specifying how that action should be taken, because I think there was a question tonight of the president and the city clerk making a decision about appointing this. And I'm not so sure if I know the right way to fill that in, but maybe we can all think about that.
We'll try to get a little bit direction.
So that maybe, yeah.
Rick?
Yes, I heard that conversation last week, and so I went and asked the Deputy Corporation Counsel what Mary Foley's status was. Mary Foley is the person you will see if you go in to the clerk's office, and she is not, and the person you talk to is not Jean Natalie. Mary is not, although Joe Cabo may have referred to her generically as an assistant, she is not the assistant city clerk. There is no one filling that position at this time. So while there may be assistants with a CE on the end, there is no assistant right now.
So the Common Council could, at their next meeting, decide they wanted to hire an assistant city clerk
Yes,
and go ahead and do it.
And the president, as one of the members, one of the people from the public said earlier, only the Common Council can appoint an assistant city clerk who will perform the duties and have the authority of the clerk in the absence of the clerk.
Okay.
Do you understand it to mean only in the absence of the clerk, of the city clerk?
I know that there is specific language in here, perform, let's see, in the absence or disability of the clerk.
So maybe we don't need
I think this.
maybe we don't need clarification.
I think this position of assistant clerk, if you look at the organizational structure, it seems to be one that begs for, a better approach. If you've got a clerk, an assistant clerk who is responsible to the Common Council, and a clerk, current situation, who is responsible to the electorate, and they're both doing the same job, it is a formula for turmoil. And I think as we go through this, to your point, we ought to be thinking about, how can this office best serve both the Common Council, the electors of the city of Danbury, as well as perform in a harmonious manner in that office. I think there's been some issues there before, and the responsibilities have not been defined very clear, and I think that's one of the things we ought to try to address when we do this. So I think you're right. I think we need to look at some of this stuff, and maybe we can get some clarification on that might answer your question.
And maybe it's a situation, and I don't know which way the commission's gonna lean, if it is, we're only talking about an assistant clerk, in the absence of the city clerk, it changes everything as far as a lot of the discussions that the public has given to us. A lot of the advice.
It may or may not.
It may or may not, but it's something, it's a
Right, it's
little bit
something-
more to think about than just what I was.
Right, I think it's something worthwhile looking at while we're taking a look at this office in a restructured manner. And I think the ultimate goal here is to provide the Common Council with resources to help them with their work. And at the same time, provide the City Hall with the resources that interacts with those offices and the Common Council. One of the thoughts that I had, and I don't know if it has any merit whatsoever, is I look at this the same way as the lawyers that are serving the Common Council. Should this position in effect be part of the corporate counsel area, where you have a clerk in a city, an assistant clerk, is part of that resource. And would that make sense at all? So I think there's a lot of organizational issues that we could look at, and it,
This might take a while.
thank you, I need a break. Okay, that's it. Thank you. So I think you're right. I think we take the opportunity now that we're going this far to look at how these two positions ought to, interface with each other, and is there a reporting relationship here?
Do you think maybe the corporation council should do the hiring as opposed to being quote appointed by the mayor?
I don't know.
Or should it be some,
I don't know, is the honest answer. I think the idea of having a mayor appoint and what's the wording, Rick? Remove, is with council approval is a good idea, because those are the two primary users, from what I gather, of that office. What I like about having some sort of relationship, dotted line or other words, to the corporate council is that so much of that job borders on legal things, on timing and compliance with laws, etc. And, it's great that if we go this route, if we decide to accept this, I think we'll have continuity in that job, as opposed to running the chance of having turnover due to elections. So we might not have as much of a training thing as we might have otherwise. If it were a 2-year term type thing, I would encourage us to think about moving it over in that department, or having some sort of relationship with the legal department. But it's a possibility. I just throw that out as something to think about, and if you're comfortable with that, or the rest of the commissions are comfortable with it. I think we would like to get some further input based on some information that we've just recently come across. And but the idea here is to have a functioning office that serves both, users of it.
Any other questions or comments? Would the commission allow the chairman some discretion to ask the members of the common council to give us 2 minutes? Have you had a chance to look at this? 2 minutes, guys, because I get in trouble when I do this. But, yeah.
Is that, point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, is that 2 minutes in total, or 2 minutes per person?
Well, you tell me, can Paul talk in 2 minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I think we should just add this to the agenda of the next meeting.
Okay.
And then everybody has time
All
to
right,
think
fairness
about
to
it.
my commissioners, I will not do it. But if you guys hang around afterwards, I'd like to talk to you.
Thanks, Peter.
Show up next week, 2 weeks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments or things that you want to see in this language? It will be on the next meeting agenda, obviously. We'll try to nail this down.
I think that maybe we can discuss a different aspect of this. I'm not sure, but I'd like the commission to think, are we all comfortable with the idea of eliminating the city clerk as an elected position? I mean, just focus on that, and then we can get to how that person or how that entity is filled in a different way.
Because this was to give you an idea of about what it would look like. Do you want to discuss that part, get a sense of the commission now?
I think we could do so without a formal vote, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Just to get a feeling.
So currently, the city clerk is an elected position. Paul, do you think it should be an elected position?
I think this is going in the right direction.
Okay.
I feel the same way. I mean, I don't see it as necessarily an elected position.
Joan?
I pretty much agree with this being an appointed position.
I concur. I think it's a good concept with I think we need to do some work on organizational structure for this, but that aside, I think the position itself is properly
I will
positioned.
agree with about where we are. Diane.
I agree also that it should not be an elected position, and I think this is going in the right direction.
So we're going down that.
I agree also, and I agree with Bob that maybe maybe it should fall under another department.
Okay. We'll bring those thoughts back, and we will try to wordsmith this and move this forward at the next meeting then. Okay. Rick, you don't have any more handouts for us, do you?
I do not.
That's really always disappointing to us.
Got very far.
We did have a meeting with the mayor where we looked at the organizational chart of the city, with the idea being, we seem to feel, I think, as a commission, that we really weren't in a position where we could redo the organizational chart of the city and really understand it, since we don't live with city government day in and day out and things. And I think the mayor's reaction was he agreed with that probably that wasn't the world's greatest idea. So I think what we're going to try to do is meet with him one more time to see if we can at least simplify the sections, starting, I think, in section 6, maybe even a little bit before that, so that we're not defining. Maybe we can simplify the charter a little bit by streamlining those sections that deal with the actual organization of the city. Because again, the city clerk is in there because it's always been in there, and maybe there's some changes we can make. So, assuming we can get back together with the mayor and get some concrete proposals on some kind of modifications, that is probably about the last thing that we need to look at. That's probably uncharted territory. About anything else?
No, there isn't. No.
Then I think that we're done for this evening. If you can try to be sure to be here for the next 2 meetings, we will get as close as we can to wrapping this up by the end of September. Diane?
There was one item that we did want to visit, and that was the percentage of voters needed for a referendum. I don't know whether we were going to cover that.
We will put that in. That is actually on my list of things, and that will come up again as part of our final review of all the decisions that we've made or that we haven't made.
I don't think we've discussed that yet, though.
So you'd like to add that to the agenda?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, Peter, would you put that on the next meeting's agenda?
All right, and when we talk about that issue, percentage of voters, we're talking about percentage of electors needed on a signature for a petition to get a referendum.
Yes.
And then would that be on all issues, ordinances and budget and so forth?
I think the current language covers that.
It is all encompassing currently,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
So we review that and come up with some other ideas on that. Anything else that we need to go over tonight? We're letting you home early, you guys.
And there's not even a basketball game.
That's right.
Or an Olympics.
Hey, there's a convention.
Where were you before?
Yeah. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.